Recording's on. How are you guys doing? Good. Okay. Surviving. All right. I have to check my own t-shirt because I just grabbed whatever is black, and all of my t-shirts are black. They just have different messages, you know. Sometimes it's the TARDIS, sometimes it's Star Wars. Nothing offensive, okay? Nothing offensive unless you work for the Empire, you know, then you might not be very pleased about my t-shirts. All right. So I had a pretty good office hour today. You know, I answered a few questions regarding, you know, the topics of this class, as well as my next class, you know, in 310. So I just want to emphasize, you know, the office hours are for you guys, okay? So if you have any questions about the topics, if you need clarifications of any kind, you know, just come, you know, talk to me before this class. You know, it's more convenient for this class than the next one because the next one, you know, is an hour and a half later, okay? All right, so let me switch to the right class. There we go. So we are almost done with functions, and then we'll come back and talk about some functions in just a little bit. But for the most part, we are done with functions because we finished talking about the application of functions as well. So that's good. So that means, you know, I can open up this function homework, or is it already open before? It's already open? Okay. So it is in the form of a quiz. Let me just check. It will close on Thursday, February the 9th. I'm not going to change that because some people may look at this and go like, oh, I still got time to do it. But the thing is, until it closes, it won't let you know what is the correct answer to those questions. So this means, you know, you guys can work on it until that time, but you won't know whether you get the answers right or not.
2 hour time limit.
And it has a 2 hour time limit. So once you start, you have, you know, 2 hours to finish it. All right, so what we'll do today is we are moving on to binary relations, which is not a function, okay? A relation is not a function, but it is kind of grouped into the same thing because it is another way to link an element of a set to another element of the same set in this case. All right. So we'll go ahead and start with this one. All right, I'm just going to highlight the portion that I talked about, and then we'll go ahead and actually, you know, explain that part a little bit. A relation R over a set X, okay? This is basically just math language here, okay? A relation R over a set X is a subset of the Cartesian product X times X, okay? So let's just kind of stop here and talk about this a little bit, okay? Because what this means is we have the Cartesian product of X times X. Now this time, you know, there's no difference. There's no domain versus the codomain. We only have one single set X here, okay? So it's basically just a subset of the Cartesian product of a set with itself, okay? And that's how a relation is. Okay, examples. And there are no particular requirements either in this case, unless you want to talk about special relations, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. So let's go ahead and use an example. So in this case, we use uppercase X as a set of just A, B, okay? Well, make it A, B, C, just a little bit more interesting. So the Cartesian product of X and itself, okay? I know this lowercase x, you know, that's the Cartesian product symbol, okay? So we know this thing has 9 elements, right? Because we have AA, AB, AC. Now remember, the ordering really does not matter inside a set. I'm just using it like this just so that I can make sure that I enumerate all the possible two tuples of this particular Cartesian product. Okay, CB and CC. There we go. All right. So are there any questions about this part? Given the set has 3 elements, A, B, and C, the Cartesian product of this set with itself would have 9 elements. Basically all the 9 possible pairs of one element from the set and another element of the same set. Is that okay? And we can have AA because AA is inside a pair of parentheses, not curly braces. If it is inside a pair of parentheses, it is a tuple, and as a tuple, you can have duplicate values within a tuple. It is not a set. Is that okay? All right. So I'm just using this opportunity to reinforce some of the concepts that we have talked about in the past. Yes?
You're recording, right?
I believe so. Let me double check. Yep, we are recording. We're in session, as they say. Yep.
You said that the order doesn't matter in this case?
The ordering does not matter because I am enumerating things inside a set and there's no ordering within a set. So I could have listed CC and then BB and then AA and then BA. I can do this in any order. It does not imply anything. The ordering of how I do this does not imply anything. It's just a way for me to make sure that I enumerate all possible cases. Okay? Because if I do it randomly, it is easy for me to forget one of the 2 tuples in the Cartesian product. But if I do it systematically, then I can make sure that I get every single one of them. Okay. All right. Any other questions? So that means if you take any subset of this thing, it is a relation. Okay, so let's pick one. Okay, I'm going to pick one that is not particularly exciting. Okay, so I'm going to pick R to be a subset of the Cartesian product, and it just has AB, BC. Okay, this R here is a set of 2 tuples. It is a subset of the Cartesian product, and it is a relation simply because it is a subset of the Cartesian product. There's no special requirement. It's not like a function where you have that special requirement that everything in the domain has to be mapped. Okay? No such requirement in the case of a relation. Let me show you another relation. That is perfectly okay as a relation. It's an empty set. Well, all that means is none of the elements of X relates to any other element of the same set through this relation. Okay? Is that okay so far? Okay. So can I switch back to the browser?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So switching back to, oh, that's not the browser. There we go. So this is just a notation. So if xy as a 2 tuple is inside the relation R, which is a subset of the Cartesian product, we can say xry is true. Okay, x relates to y through R. Okay, it's just a terminology. All right, so let's go ahead and think about the kind of relation that we deal with a lot. This is a relation that we deal with a lot in computer science. It's equality. It's basically saying, okay, is the right-hand side the same as the left-hand side? Is that okay? So when we try to define equality, we just say that, oh, if the same thing is true on both, if it is the same thing on both sides, then the equality holds. Is that okay? But we can also say, this, okay? If R is representing equality over all integers, then we can say, this R is, has this particular property. Every element in R is a 2 tuple, where the 2 components of the 2 tuple are exactly the same. And it is an element, each one is an element of the set of integers. Okay, so let's just focus on this one, and we'll go ahead and try to enumerate just to take a quick look at what is going to be in this particular set here, and we'll do it inside the word processor or the notepad. Okay, so if we define R like this in an abstract way, I can now take a look at this and go like, oh, do you think that is a part of this R? Yes or no? It meets the requirement, doesn't it? Okay,
Yeah.
because 0 is an element of integers. Okay, that meets the first requirement, and we have exactly the same value of both components of the two tuple has exactly the same value. So that also meets the requirement that it has to be in the form of XX in the two tuple. Is that okay? Okay. So you can probably imagine, the rest of items in this set here. So these are all the elements, okay? These are all elements in this particular set. But because there is an infinite number of elements in the set of integers, there's also an infinite number of elements in this particular relation, which we call equality. Is that okay? All right. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at something that you are also familiar with. What if R represents less than or equal to? Well, just less than. Okay. Then what is going to be in R? Over integers. There we go. Okay, so give me some examples. I know this set is really big. Just give me some examples. What's going to be in it?
1, 2.
1, 2. Okay, very good. 1, 2 is going to be here. -1. 1,000 is going to be in it, right? 4, 5 is going to be in it. 410, 510, and so on. I mean, it has a lot of elements. Each element is a two tuple where the first value is less than the second value. Okay? Is that okay? Are we okay with the concept of a relation? More or less. Yep.
Can you have a ternary relation?
No, we don't do a ternary relation, so it can only relate two things within the set. Now there might be another branch of math that deals with like a relation that has 3 components, but not in this class. Okay. Are there any questions? Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to our example here. Okay. So going back to this example, I'm just going to copy and paste this, just so that we have a clean start over here. Okay. So I can now define, an R over X, a relation R over this X here, and let's take a look at this one, AB and BC. Okay, there we go. Well, this one has a special name. Okay, this one is called transitive. Okay, it's a transitive, well, at this point it's not transitive yet, but now it is transitive. So we can define these terms, okay, to basically say, okay, what do we know about a particular relation? Is it reflexive? Is it symmetric? Is it anti-symmetric, which is not the same thing as not symmetric? Anti-symmetric is not exactly the same as not symmetric. Or is it transitive? Okay, so we want to take a look at each and every single one of these qualifications and see if we can come up with some examples. So we call a particular relation R over a set X, we call it reflexive if and only if the following is true. Okay? Okay, so let's take a look at this one here, and can someone tell me in English what does it say? What does it say?
For all X, in big X.
Every single element of X has to relate to itself. Okay, all right, so so if I have X defined like this, okay, so if X is the set of just A, B, and C, how do we make an example of a relation that is reflexive?
AA.
Okay, it has AA, BB, and CC, but it can also have other elements. Okay, so you can also have other elements like AC and CA. Okay, this relation over X is reflexive. Why is it reflexive? Because it meets this requirement. So if you look at this requirement, it says, for each element in X, it has to relate to itself. But it doesn't say they cannot relate to anything else. Is that okay? So when you look at the example that we have here, X has exactly 3 elements. It has A, B, and C as its elements. The relation is here is relating A to A, is relating B to B, is relating C to C. That by itself is already meeting the requirement of being reflexive. But what about the other things? You can have some other stuff if you want to. It doesn't make it not reflexive.
But BC wouldn't be one of them, right?
BC?
Oh, never mind, no, never mind.
Or you can add BC. You know that will not break reflexivity. Yeah. Or reflexiveness. Yeah.
Okay, so but if you have BC, then you have to have CB also?
No, because because reflexive is reflecting the element itself. So if you have element A in the original set, A has to relate back to A itself.
So basically, then in the set that you're creating, A has to go with A at least once, B has to go with B, and C has to go with C for it to be reflexive, which is what A is
Yep.
But A can go with something else.
So if you take out one of the same ones, would that be okay?
That would not be okay. If I take out one of these, if I take out CC, this is no longer reflexive. It is no longer reflexive because it doesn't meet that requirement anymore. The requirement says, for every element in the set of ABC, that relation has to hold. But now I can say, hey, what about element C? Element C is an element of X, and yet C does not relate to C through R. So as a result, R is not reflexive in this case. Yep.
So where you take the AC out,
You can take AC out, you can take CA out,
so it doesn't matter.
it does not matter. But you do need CC back in order for this to be reflexive. So once you have these 3 in this particular relation, the rest is optional. If all you need is a relation that is reflexive, then the other ones are no longer needed. But it won't break it either. You can have all the other ones, it's not a problem. So do we have any questions about what makes a relation reflexive? It is a mirror, okay? So you have to see yourself through R. That makes it reflexive. Okay? Is that okay? All right, okay. So moving on to symmetric. Okay, so symmetric is defined like this. A relation R over a set X is symmetric if and only if the following is true. So once again, we have a statement that has to be true in order for a relation to be qualified as symmetric. So in this case, we say for any element X in the set X, for any element Y in the set X. In other words, I just randomly pick one as X, randomly pick one for Y. They can be the same, they can be different, it doesn't really matter. If I can find XRY, then I have to be able to find YRX. Okay, one implies the other. If this holds true for every pair, every single way of pairing X and Y as elements of X, then the relation R is said to be symmetric. Okay, so this one is actually more confusing, okay? So let me go ahead and show you some examples, and you guys tell me whether it is reflexive or not, okay? So I'm gonna erase this, and I'll start with something like that. Is that reflexive?
Yes.
The answer is yes, it is reflexive. What?
I'm sorry about symmetric.
Symmetric. Sorry. It is not reflexive, but it is symmetric. Sorry. Okay, need to update my cache. I got a paging error. Okay, so this relation, which is an empty set, is definitely not reflexive because the set has A, B, and C, and none of them is relating to itself. So it's definitely not reflexive. But the question is it symmetric? it is symmetric. Well, how can this be symmetric? I don't see anything here. How can nothing be symmetric? Well, to understand this part, I think we can look at it this way, okay? So what we can do is we can say, let's look at all the possible pairs of x and y. Now there are only, well, okay, that's there are only 9 of them, so we can do this, okay? So x can be A, x can be B, x can be C. Okay, let me scroll this up a little bit. Okay, y can be A, B, or C. A, should have done this using a spreadsheet. A, B, or C, right? Okay. So now the question is, what about x, r, y for that particular row? Is that true?
Yes.
No. But does x plus A relate to A? Because we are talking about a relation that is an empty set here, right? In other words, nothing relates to anything in x. So that means A relating to A is false. Okay? In fact, I can say it to every single row because the relation is empty. Nothing relates to anything else. Is that okay? Now, let's take a look at YRX. YRX. Tag, is this some kind of trick question? Because if there's no relation, this is an entire row of 0 as well. Okay. So where are we going? Okay. So let me scroll this up, and because I do want to show you the requirement here, okay? So I want this implication to be true all the time. Is that okay? So the question now is asking, does false imply false? False implies false is true or false?
True.
It's true, because false implies whatever is always true. So in here, I will make one more column. XRY implies YRX. Well, because the first component is false for every single row, so that means the implication is holding up for every single row as well. Like so. And as a result, this particular relation, even though it is an empty relation, it is symmetric. Yep.
Can you repeat what's the condition in order to want it to be related together?
So the definition of a relation is this. XRY is true if and only if XY as a two-tuple is inside the relation. Now since R in our example is an empty set, right? So that means nothing relates to anything else or anything in that particular set. So this is a notation. Basically, if you find the two-tuple XY as an element of R, then we say that XRY is true. X relates to the Y through R. Okay? Yep.
Do x and y have to be different from each other?
No.
So if it's 2, 2, then you would also have to have another 2, 2? If they're the same
No,
value.
because 2, 2 and 2, 2 as two tuples
Yeah.
are the same.
Okay.
And you cannot have two elements that are the same in a set.
Oh.
So just the one tuple makes it reflexive or symmetric?
Hmm?
Just the one?
If it was just 2, 2,
I
that
don't
would be,
like to see
it would
it.
still be symmetric, right?
Yeah.
If it's 2, 2, it will still be symmetric. Correct. Okay, so getting back to symmetric. Okay, so in this case, basically you're saying, okay, what if BB is there, right?
Yeah.
Because if BB is here, then BRB is true, but because B is both X and Y, BRB is also true. True implies true is true. So that's why, we'll still end up with a 1 in this column. So this will still be an entire column of 1s, which means the relation would still be symmetric. That is correct. Okay. Are we okay so far? What about an How about another example? Okay, another example to illustrate whether something is or is not symmetric. Okay, so this time let's go ahead and change this so that we have AC, and then we have CA, and we'll have, I don't know, BB. Just put that in, okay? So this time we'll go ahead and erase most of these. I'm going to erase all of them so that you guys can help me fill it in. And then we'll analyze whether this particular relation is still considered symmetric. Okay, ARA is false. ARA is false. And because the first component is false, the implication is true. Is that part okay? Because this is testing whether you understand the definition of implication or not. Right?
Yeah.
Because A implies B is the same thing as not A or B, which also means if the first part is false, then the implication itself is true. Okay, very good. So what about AB? That's not here. BA is not here, so the implication is true. AC, we find that. Okay, that's cool. What about CRA? CRA is here, so that's 1, 2. So true implies true is true, so we are good. BA, missing. AB is missing, so the implication is true. BB is here. BB is here, so the implication is true. And the rest are all like this. This one is here, so it's the opposite side. So this one is also here as true. CB 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1. So as a result, this implication does hold true for every single pair of x and y that you can find in the set. As a result, the relation is symmetric. Is that okay? So symmetric basically is saying that if you find a relation, x, r, y, you have to be able to find the opposite one as well. That makes it symmetric. Yep.
So what would be a situation where it wasn't symmetric? Would it be like if you had something outside the set?
To make it not reflexive? No, not symmetric?
Yeah.
No, to make it not symmetric, you just have to make one here and then the opposite direction is not there. So in order to make this not symmetric, I can put this here. If I do not put in BA also, this is now not not symmetric. Because let's just take a look at the truth table, what happens in this case. Because AB is true, right? Because ARB is now here. But BRA is not. BA is not a 2-tuple in this particular set. So this column would still have a 0 here. True implies false is false. And the other column would actually still be true because BRA would be false. ARB would be true. But this is okay because the first component is false, so that means the entire implication will still be false. But because you don't have a column that consists of only truths in this case anymore, and one item is a false, so that means this requirement is not holding true for every single possible way to pair the elements, and as a result, the relation is no longer symmetric. Yep.
So for the BA, because false implies true, you wouldn't put false for that?
Because false implies true is true, so that means that's why we still have a true here. Okay, so let's take a closer look at this one. X is B, Y is A, right? So this is asking, does B relate to A? No, the answer is no. But then the opposite side is, does Y relate to R or does A relate to B? Well, yes, right? But false implies true is true. Yep.
It's just like you're saying that in the class, like you said, I don't know, the sky's purple, so everyone fails, like cisp440.
Yep, that relates back to.
Same relation.
It has to do with the definition of implication, correct? Because the definition of implication is x implies b, x implies y, is saying exactly the same thing as not x or y. That's it. So if x is false, then it automatically makes the disjunction true. Doesn't even matter what y is. Is that okay? All right. So are we ready to move on from symmetric to anti-symmetric? Sort of, yes? Okay. So we are moving on to anti-symmetric. So anti-symmetric has this particular requirement, which is kind of odd looking, okay? So this one is saying, for any pair of x, y that you can find from the original set X, okay? X R Y and Y R X implies X and Y are exactly the same thing. In other words, if you find out that X relates to Y and Y relates to X, that would imply that X and Y are exactly the same thing. Okay, so if that is the definition, let's go ahead and figure out a way to make a particular relation anti-symmetric or not anti-symmetric. Okay, so we'll go ahead and make our truth table a little bit different this time. Okay, here we go. All right, empty set. If the relation is empty, is it automatically anti-symmetric or not? It's automatically anti-symmetric because XRY and YRX can never be true because there's no relation whatsoever. But if that is always false, the implication itself is always true, so it's okay. Is that okay? Do we have any questions about the reason why an empty relation is always anti-symmetric? Okay? No questions? Okay. All right. So how do we make this relation anti-symmetric when the set X has A, B, and C? So let's go ahead and make it anti-symmetric. Let's make it very simple, okay? As minimal as possible, make it anti-symmetric. Would that work?
Yes.
It would work because A relates to itself, right? So that means ARA to the left of the conjunction is true. It also means ARA to the right-hand side of the conjunction is also true, which means the conjunction itself is true when X is A and Y is A. Does A equal to A? Yep, so the implication holds. But what about all of the other ones? What if we put we consider X as A and Y as B? Well, the relation is false to begin with. As a result, this is never true, and as a result, we don't even care whether they are the same or not. Is that okay? Just getting back a little bit, I just want to double check. Is this relation reflexive?
No.
It is not reflexive because reflexive has to apply to every element in X. Every element in X has to relate to itself in order for the relation to be reflexive. In this case, only one of the elements in X relates to itself. It is not reflexive. And yet, it is anti-symmetric. Yep.
So would all reflexive automatically be anti-symmetric then?
No. Okay, so let me give you an idea of why reflexive does not imply anti-symmetric. Is that what you asked? Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and make it reflexive first, okay? This makes it reflexive. Every element relates to itself. So I'm going to add some more stuff to it, okay? So at this point, it is reflexive and it is also anti-symmetric at the same time. but I can make it not anti-symmetric. I can make it not anti-symmetric now. Okay, I put AB in here. I put BA in here. That's all I need. Because at this point, okay, let's check out these columns. Okay, so I'm only interested in a few of these combinations. Because when X is A and Y is B, okay, what is XRY? It's true. What about YRX? True as well. So true and true is true. A and B equaling to each other is false. So let me just add one more column here. This time I'm looking into implication, and I'll put parentheses around this whole thing so that we are clear that this is considered as one single expression. Okay. Is the implication true or false? The implication is false. Since we have at least one row of the implication being false, that means the relation itself is not anti-symmetric. It is reflexive, but it's not anti-symmetric. Is that okay? Yep.
Would you say anti-symmetric set is a subset of symmetric and reflective sets?
It is not a subset. Okay, so this is not anti-symmetric, but it is reflexive. And also symmetric, yes, because it is symmetric because if you find ARB, then BRA is there as well. ARA is ARA, BRB is BRB, CRC is CRC. Okay, so it is reflexive, it is symmetric, but it is not anti-symmetric. So I'm going to take out one element, and you guys tell me what it is. I'm taking out that. Is it still reflexive?
Yes.
Yep. Is it symmetric? Not. It's not symmetric anymore. Is it anti-symmetric? Yes. It is anti-symmetric.
So every set has to be either symmetric or anti-symmetric.
Hmm?
Every relation has to be either symmetric or anti-symmetric. Is that accurate?
Every relation has to be symmetric,
Or anti-symmetric, one or the other.
one or the exclusive or.
No, because it can be
No.
both. I think it can be both.
Can be both, yes. Equivalence is both. Okay, but does everybody understand this part? You know why it is reflexive, not symmetric, but it is anti-symmetric. Okay, I can see some frowning. Yep, go ahead.
So why is the element A still qualified to be element of anti-symmetric set?
Okay, so this relation is still anti. Okay, let's check it out. Okay, so the best way to do this is, okay, tell me one case where you think this is not anti-symmetric. What would be X and what would be Y to make it not anti-reflexive? I'm suspecting you're suspecting this one, right? If X is B, Y is C, this row will end up with a false. Is that what you're suspecting? Okay, so let's work it out. Okay, so X is B, Y is C. Oops, A and B, sorry. There you go. Okay, I just shifted all the characters by one. Okay, AB, is that working okay? Okay. XRY, A, in other words, ARB, is it here? ARB is definitely here, okay, that's a true. What about BRA? Not here, it's a false. So the conjunction is a false already. Well, if the conjunction is false, I can pretty much conclude the implication is true already, so I don't even need to finish the rest of it. Do you see why, how I can remove, BA from the relation and completely turn around, when I changed it from symmetric to not symmetric, not anti-symmetric to now it is anti-symmetric. Okay, so are there any questions about anti-symmetric? Questions? Yes, go ahead.
So the case where it would be, or it would not be antisymmetric is if you had EA alongside with all that.
Right, if I add BA back into R, then it will be not anti-symmetric. But then it will be symmetric again.
And it will be reflexive.
It will still be reflexive. Reflexive only needs AA, BB, CC to be here. You can have anything else, you know, it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is still reflexive. Right. Are we ready to move on to transitive? Okay, let's move on. So transitive has this requirement for for 3 elements. This time we need 3 elements, X, Y, and Z. Pick any 3 elements. They can be the same, they can be different, but give me 3 elements. Give me 3 things as elements of X. The requirement is basically just here. If you can find X, R, Y, and you can find Y, R, and Z, then you also have to be able to find X, R, Z. That is transitive. Is that okay? So let's go ahead and check out a few cases and see whether those are transitive or not. So as usual, I start off with, whoops, I don't want to change this part. I want to change this part. Okay. So I'm gonna, this part doesn't really apply anymore because we need something like that, X, R, Z. Okay, so if the relation is empty, does it automatically make it transitive, or does it automatically make it not transitive? What do you think? It is automatically transitive because it has got the implication. Now you can see, how important the concept of implication is, because the whole idea of implication is if the first part is false, then we're good. Okay? So the only way to make an implication false is for the left-hand side of the implication to be true, but the right-hand side of the implication to be false. Okay? So that really is important. Okay. So if R is empty, it is automatically transitive. What about this? What if R only relates A to A when there are 3 elements A, B, and C? Would that be transitive or not transitive? It is transitive. All right, let's put some of the other ones back in. Is it transitive now? It is still transitive, right? Okay, cool. Is it still transitive?
Yes.
Okay. It is still transitive.
The first part of the implication is false.
Exactly. There's no way to make the first part of the implication true. There's no way to satisfy this requirement. Well, actually, I take it back. There is a way to make it true. But then the other part will be true as well. Okay, let me illustrate that part. Okay, so given the relation is like this, it is not obvious why it is still transitive, but it is. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at a few cases. So I'm going to complete this and say, and YRZ implies XRZ. Okay, so we'll take a look at every single column, because this one, there are some cases that are really obvious, but some cases are not obvious. Okay, and then we got 3 elements here. I'm not going to enumerate all possible combinations of X, Y, Z, because that's going to involve 3 to the power of 3, which is 27 possible cases. And that's going to be a long list. Okay, so I'm just going to pick out a few kind of interesting ones. If I pick out, X, Y, and Z, and they're all A's, well, this is an easy one to figure out. A relating to A is true. A relating to A is true. A relating to A is true. The conjunction of these two is true. And this one is true as well. So we have true implies true, which is true. Is that okay? Okay. So this is not too exciting. BB, same thing. CC is the same thing. So those are not very exciting. What about this? What about AAB? Aha. So with AAB, we want to see if it is true. Okay. ARA is true. ARB is true. ARB is true. So the implication is still holding. Because in this case, X and Y are both A, and Z is the only one that is B.
AB is in the center one. And XC is AB.
Yep.
Just to clear things up, I think I should have asked this a while ago, but when there's like an A and a B in parentheses, that means that A relates to B, right?
Yes. So when you have a two tuple, where the first component is A and the second component is B, that means A relates to B, yep. Or ARB. Yep.
Where does the C coming from? It's just one randomly chosen.
Yes. Just as, so in this case, this table, if I were to finish this entire table, it would have 27 rows. Because it's 3 to the power of 3. So it's going to be a long list. Question? I think I saw a hand. No? Okay. Okay. So let's check out, what about this? Okay, would that make it false? Because we want to make this column false so that this is no longer transitive. So ARB is true. But BRA is false. And then this is ARA, it is true again. So then what do we get? We have false implies true. False implies whatever is true, right? So the whole thing is still true. We cannot make it false. Are we still doing okay so far with these examples? Sort of. Okay. How about this? I'll give you guys maybe a few minutes, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, so that you guys can kind of think about it. Talk with your neighbor if you want to. If your neighbor feels like talking to you, go ahead and talk to your neighbor. You can also kind of roll back to some of the examples earlier and see if you kind of understand the concept. So after maybe 3 minutes, you guys can ask questions about, ask clarification questions. Yes, go ahead.
Why is XRY and YRZ true? It's true and false, and true and false implies false.
Okay, so in this case, we have XRY being true, right? Because X is A, Y is B, and we have that relation here, right? YRZ is BRA, it is missing in here, so that's why it is false. And then XRZ is ARA, and we have it here. Is that okay?
Oh, I thought the one column was only dedicated to XRY and YRZ. That's what.
Which column? Is this column?
I thought that one.
No, this is for the entire implication.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, this is for the entire implication.
I thought it was just for the and statement.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna start the timer. Why are is not here? Because we're not looking for symmetry.
That's what.
XRZ is A. Oh, it's because of that.
close, you can have how you score.
So if this is, because this in this case is false,
No,
right?
because you
That
have
implication is because
contributed
it
to
is
our
false.
So it doesn't matter if it's true or false.
No, just because this is false and this is the operator, this becomes true. It all goes back to that definition.
He doesn't say anything about it. Okay, so if this part was false, then this whole thing would be.
Doesn't matter what that.
No, the only way.
No,
It's
how do you make this whole statement if the condition has
Oh, I know.
Oh, this has to be false and this.
And y is graph
So if this is false,
and y has
It's
to
always
be
true.
Okay.
then
Yeah.
it must be present
Wait,
at x.
how do we, okay, I'm trying to think of like how we make the table.
With the base class of
I changed my.
Like if it's true.
I don't know if
True
it applies,
and
but-
true is true, right? Implication. And then,
Yes. Oh,
false and false and true is also true. If that's always false, then it's everything is false. And then if this is true and that's false, that's the only time the implication is false. Yeah, because the first one's false, anything can hold, so it's automatically true. That's the only reason that makes sense. So, there's like, I always remember if you ever see the arrow, like it's just backwards.
Okay.
It's really confusing, it doesn't make intuitive sense in my mind.
Yeah. This is
And it
like
all-
literally the only
Oh yeah, it's like that one's false, and yeah, this one's false, it doesn't matter what this one is.
Okay, so it only matters when the first thing is true and then like.
If I also have
Then you
TC
can
in
make
here, then it's
meaningful-
not
yeah.
translated
Okay.
anymore. Because I can make ARB, BRC both true, but ARC is missing.
Which one does it work?
It's a little tricky.
It's recording, right?
Yep. We're recording blank stuff right now. Alright. Alright, so I think 3 minutes or so has passed. Is it helpful? I mean, is it good to give you guys some time to kind of reflect or kind of talk with your neighbor? Okay, alright, cool. This is something I'm introducing in this semester. I have never used this technique before. But since I now start to understand personality types and whatnot, I know some of you are E's, you know, extroverts. So, you know, for those of you who are extroverted, you know, you need to talk to someone to absorb the information. So this is kind of like a time for those people to be able to talk to other people. If you are introverted, on the other hand, you need time to reflect, to absorb the material. So you may not be talking to other people, but you will be using this time to kind of go like, okay, so I just need to let it soak and sink in and get the idea. So I think, you know, having a little bit of time is always going to be helpful. Okay, what about this? Okay, I'm just adding, we're just stacking, right? Is it still transitive?
No.
Nope, it's not transitive anymore. Because we can find ARB, we can find BRC, but we cannot find ARC. So the implication has the left-hand side being true, but the right-hand side being false. As a result, the implication itself is false. So that's not good. To save the day, we can now introduce AC. Now it is transitive again. Is that okay? So by changing strategic, you know, elements, we can turn this into a transitive relation or not transitive. So the key is, okay, if you need to practice or go back to this example, the key is out of these three, okay, these three, if they're together, it is transitive. If it is missing just this one, it is not transitive. On the other hand, if it is missing this one, it will still be transitive. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, it is now still transitive. It's not a problem because BRC is missing, so that means the left-hand side of the implication will be false when x is A, y is B, and z is C. If the left-hand side of the implication is false, then the implication itself is true, regardless of what is on the right-hand side. Is that okay? So I'll just make this, explain this one. So we have ABC, x is A, y is B, z is C. XRY is true, YRZ is false, XRZ is true again. This part here is true and false, which is automatically a false, so that makes the implication itself automatically a true. So it does not break the transitive property of this relation. Are we still doing okay so far? Okay. The next one is easy, equivalence. Equivalence means a relation is reflexive, symmetric, and transitive. If it meets all three requirements, it is called equivalence. And we have a equivalence relation that we have used in programming, in math classes, and we know this one since like second grade, okay? It's equal to. Think about equal to. Okay? Okay, equal to as a relation over, doesn't really matter, but I'm just gonna say over integers, okay? Okay, let's check whether it is all of these properties or not, okay? Is it reflexive? Is equality reflexive? Does everything equal to itself? 1 equals 1, 2 equals 2, okay? It meets the requirement of reflexive, okay? Is it symmetric? Well, 1 equals 1 implies 1 equals 1, not a problem. 2 equals 2 implies 2 equals 2 because I'm just swapping the 2, right? Doesn't really matter, it is still true. If 2 is true, if 2 equals 2 is true, then 2 equals 2 is also true, so it's okay, not a problem. What about 1 equals 3? Well, 1 equals 3 is false to begin with, so it's okay, not a problem, because the left-hand side of the implication is false to begin with. We don't have to consider the right-hand side. Okay, so it is symmetric. What about anti-symmetric? Which is not a requirement to be equivalent, but let's check it anyway. Is it anti-symmetric? Equality, is it anti-symmetric? If you find x r y and y r x, then x equals y is automatic. It is anti-symmetric. The last one is transitive. Is equality transitive? It is transitive. So it meets basically all three requirements. Anti-symmetric is not one of the requirements, but it is reflexive, it is symmetric, and it's also transitive. That makes it, we call that, equivalence. It's just a name. Okay, are we still doing okay so far with this? Yep.
I just want to make sure. So for the transitive, where it's A, B, and AC, it makes it not. That case is not. It's not transitive. If you put AC, it would be transitive, but if you put CA, it would not.
CA.
So order matters.
Order
X and Y.
matters. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Are we still doing okay so far or not? Okay, I'm gonna skip this section here, which is basically just looking at a function, looking at a relation as a function. So we'll skip that. Because I'm pretty sure a lot of people are just asking the question, why is this important to me as a programmer? If I just want to write some programs, why do I need to understand relations, and all of these kind of abstract properties of a relation? Okay. What do you think? Why is this important? It's written here, okay, so for those of you who read ahead of me, you already know the answer. It has to do with whether something is partially ordered or totally ordered, okay? So I'm not gonna, bore you with any more details. Instead, I'll kind of ask you to think about this example, okay? So let's say you're writing a game, okay, because I want to go back to that cartoon, where, a student is just thinking about, okay, I just want to write a game, why do I need to understand all this math stuff, right? Okay, so let's say you're writing a game, and you are trying to rank players, okay? So what are some of the things that you can use to rank a player? How many games, that player has played over a fixed period of time, okay? So you want to encourage people to play the video game, so you want to put that as one of the attributes. So I'm gonna write it on the whiteboard and say, game time, okay? So if it's one of the things that you might want to look at, okay? Depending on the nature of the game, you might want to look at the, what is the ratio of getting killed versus, killing the other?
KD.
Huh?
Kill death ratio.
Sorry?
Kill death ratio.
Kill death ratio, that's it. KDS. KDR, kill death ratio.
Yeah.
Okay? So, that may be important, one of the things that you might be looking at, okay? Percentage of wins, okay? Now, all of these one does not imply the other, okay? So they're not measuring exactly the same thing, because somebody may be very good, but only play one single game every month, as opposed to playing like 20 games a day. But because you're trying to sell stuff through the game, you want to encourage people to spend more time on the game, so you want to bump up the game time. KDR versus percentage of wins. If your game is team-based, okay, you might have the worst KDR, but you can still have a high percentage of wins because you are pairing. You have a really good team of people, and your role may end up to be one of the roles where you have a really poor KDR. Okay, I used to play a game called NetTrack. Okay, you guys can look it up. I'm just gonna put a link here. I don't think anyone cares about that anymore. But when I was in grad school, I spent a lot of time in NetTrack. So this is NetTrack. Apparently, people are still playing it. Some, I guess, by the time professors are still playing it. It's basically they use the Star Trek universe, and the objective is to take over planets. Okay, so you have to land troops on planets in order to take over a planet. And the objective is to take over every single planet on the other side, okay? So in this kind of game, some people have the worst possible KDR because they're called suicide bombers. So they don't survive, because their job is to stop the invasion, from coming in. So they just need to make sure that the other ship is destroyed. It doesn't matter whether their KDR is low or not. So someone can have a very bad KDR and still have a high win percentage because that allows the team itself to advance and take over the other planets. Okay, so I'm just going to use these three as as criteria to evaluate a particular game. Is that okay? So now you have three numbers. How do you rank your players when you have three different numbers? So let's say you're trying to find, okay, this is our player of the month. Okay, how do you find and rank your player so that you can select one of those as the player of the month? These are all important.
Game time.
Sorry?
Game time.
Game time?
Yeah.
Well, but game time can be someone who's just turning on the game and leading the entire team to lose every single time, right? That would not be a good person to select as a gamer of the month.
Use a relation.
Hmm?
Use some kind of relation.
some kind of relation, okay? Okay, all right? Okay, so within each one you can rank, right? You can sort, okay? So you can sort, okay, who has the most game time within a month, who has the least game time within a month. So you have one ranking depending on game time. You have another ranking based on KDR, okay? Who has the best KDR, who has the worst KDR. You sort the same players using KDR. And then you have percent wins, who has the best percentage of wins and who has the worst percentage of wins, and you can rank it as well. But how do you combine these three in order to come up with a total ranking? That is the question, okay? So let's just say that you come up with a function, right? So you say, int is a better player than, okay? So it's a Boolean function. It returns a true or false, whether a player is better than the other player. So I'm just going to use approximate C++ syntax here. So you have a class called player. A is a player. B is a player, or pointer to a player structure, right? So inside here you have some kind of code to do the ranking. Okay, you have some kind of logic. The question now is your way of ranking, this is a relation, by the way. It doesn't look like a relation, it looks like a C function, right? But it is a relation because it is asking you, is A relating to B through this relation? Is A better player than B? That is the relation. It's asking you that question. Is that okay? But there are certain requirements you want within this kind of relation. You want it to be totally ordered. In other words, you want to be able to tell people and say, okay, of all 20 players that I need to rank, this is a list. This is the best player, this is the second best, this is the third best, and so on. Which means it's a total order, because you can tell how each player relates to all of the other players. Is that okay? That is what you want. So now the question is, whatever code you stick in here, now you have to subject this code to be tested for the stuff that we have talked about just a little bit. Okay, so you have to check, is it, well, for sure it is not going to be reflexive, because a player cannot be a better player than himself or herself. It doesn't make sense. Is it transitive? Do you want it to be transitive? If A is a better player than B and B is a better player than C, do you want that to imply that A is a better player than C? Absolutely. That is a requirement. You want that to be true. Now, but depending on how you write this code, it may or may not be true. Is that okay? So this is one reason why relation is kind of important, because it's not just in a game. Let's say you're writing a program to list realty, houses for sale, okay? And you want to do some kind of ranking because you want the most profitable property to be listed first. Okay, that makes sense, right? Because if you have a property and you think, well, even if we sell this one, it's going to be at a loss, do you want it to be pop up at the very beginning and go like, let's sell this one first? No, you want that spot to be reserved for the most profitable house or the most profitable property. How do you rank it? There are many ways to rank a property. Okay, does it have a clean title? Okay, or does it have, is it a lien? Okay, if it has a lien, it's not as desirable. Is it just recently modeled? How recently was it remodeled? Okay, that may be one of the requirements. What is the square footage of the interior? Okay, that might be one of the requirements. Which neighborhood does it belong to? What is the crime rate of the neighborhood? That might be one of the criteria. But you have to find a way to come up with a ranking that is totally ordered, because that's the only way that makes sense when you need to determine what do I list first, what is the second one, what is the third one. So what we are learning here is now becoming important, because you have to look at your code and say, okay, is this relation transitive? Because we want it to be transitive. Is that making any sense? Sort of? Okay? So this is just, the explanation of all that stuff. This one is kind of interesting too. Totally ordered, seems to go against the very principle of Zen and Taoism. But totally ordering is important. When we use the less than operator in C and C++, oh, by the way, the first thing is, do you know that this is the only relation you will ever need when you're writing programs? Forget about less than, equal to, not equal to. That's all useless. You never needed those to begin with. Really. Okay. So let's go check that out first. Okay. Okay. So let's say you have a kind of really awkward programming language, or Professor Fox says, tell you guys, when you're writing this program, I don't want to see equal to, I do not want to see greater than, I don't want to see less than or equal to. The only comparison you can use is less than, okay? Okay. So are you going to complain and say, it's not possible? Or are you just going to say, well, okay, I know how to do it. Yes?
Can we use not?
You can use not, you can use or, you can use and.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's check out, okay? X is less than y is just x is less than y because less than is allowed, not a problem. X is less than or equal to y. Oh, we cannot use less than or equal to, but how can we translate less than or equal to just less than?
Not less.
How about that? Okay, cool. X is greater than y, we just flip the order, not a big deal, right? What about equal to? Well, let's deal with not equal to first because that's the easier one. Okay, what about next not equal to?
X not less than y and y not less than x.
Yep, exact or. There's an or. And then you just put or in between. Okay, I guess since I'm using C syntax, might as well go all the way.
That'd be not. Oh, that's not.
That's a not.
I'm sorry.
Logical not. Okay, what about equal to? Well, since we have not equal to can be done in a lazy way, because you can just say that, that, right? Wait, I think we got all the comparisons now. We're good to go.
You can't use like zeros. You can't use the zero. I can't say like
What?
x minus y equals 0.
We don't need that.
You didn't do.
We can use less than to get to every single comparison relation. Now we have 1 minute left, okay? So since we only need one single comparison operation, what about logical operation? What about that not versus the or versus the and? Do we need all of those? If I were to use only one single logical operation, which one would be the best? But they have to be able to replace every single one else. It's actually NAND. Okay, now C does not really have a NAND, okay? But if you have a NAND, which is the negated AND, that is all you need. You can use NAND. For those of you who are staying for 310, you should know this already because we just talked about it. So if you have a NAND operator, which is a negated AND operator, it can be used to make a NOT, as in NOT NOT. It can also be used to make a OR, which is disjunction. It can also be used to make an AND, which is regular conjunction. So it is one single operator, and yet you can use that one single operator to emulate all of the other operators. Okay? This is really inspiring me to create a new programming language so that the only relation you can check is less than, and then the only logical operation, logical operator is a NAND. And then you have to do everything else using these two. All right. I'll see you guys on Thursday, unless you're in the next class, and I'll see you in about 10 minutes.